Thank you very much. We'll now turn to our final presenter, the PEARS Project. Please state your name for the record, and then you may begin. You will have 7 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Micah Kalisch. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on such an important and very pervasive topic. As I said, my name is Micah. I am the founder and the director of the PEARS Project, which is a grassroots organization within the University of Toronto. But I'm also here today as a survivor of sexual violence myself, and I am here today as a student at the University of Toronto. The PEARS Project operates tri-campus at U of T, which represents over 90,000 students. I began my survivor advocacy within the post-secondary context in my very first year of university. After a group of first-year students were assaulted during a Frosh Week event, I reported this to the university, as they requested me to do, and the university claimed they were unable to do anything. After following up consistently and gathering over 70 people to send emails to the university, I met with a member of administration who told me, quote, "This just isn't a priority right now." Since then, I have experienced neglect and abandonment firsthand as a survivor within the university. I've also seen NDAs that students have been coerced into signing. I've had to walk into hallways with professors who are predators, and I've had to explain to other survivors why the university they pay to be a part of won't believe them. I share this because it's all too common, and this is not an isolated event. I work with survivors from post-secondary institutions across Canada, and I've heard the truths and experiences of people who have been harmed and silenced by their universities. I've seen students who have had to drop out because of delayed investigations that put their safety at risk and their lives at risk. I've seen investigations that are dropped partway through because of time caps on policies, or students who are coerced into silence. Students walk the hallways with abusers and predators. They've had to miss class out of fear for their safety and well-being. So I say this because our conversations here today and the power held in this room are going to impact real lives. We're not just talking about statistics. We're talking about the safety and well-being of students. Because every day I work with and speak with survivors, and survivors ask me how our schools and how our government are going to support them and keep them safe, and to this day, I still don't have an answer for them. Places of education should be a place where people feel safe expressing themselves, and not a place where people fear for their safety, dignity, and are silenced. This is the reality of students' lives. Professors are being permitted to abuse students, and no one is holding them or the university they work for accountable, and we desperately need the government to step up. This bill does provide a sense of hope that these issues will be addressed on a government level. However, they are a long way from perfect. There are necessary amendments to be made in order to ensure this legislation actually protects and supports survivors. One of the first amendments which PEARS proposes is a change in language. Rather than using sexual abuse, we suggest sexual violence, as this is more encompassing of the experiences survivors face. Section number 3 of this policy, no reemployment, seems to only prevent reemployment within the same institution, meaning predatory professors could be fired from one university and go to another. Sexual violence thrives in silence. Rape culture is perpetuated by systemic cultures of silencing survivors, dismissing violence, and belittling or blaming survivors. And there's an urgent need to regulate the use of non-disclosure agreements which uphold rape culture and often coerce survivors or are presented as the only option. In reality, these agreements silence us, protect perpetrators, and maintain the university's image. PEI's recent Bill 118 presents some examples for best practices with regards to these regulations. We've seen the way the institutions silence survivors through legal practices and confidentiality agreements that mimic NDAs, essentially creating a loophole in which they can claim one was never issued. Much of this legislation also leaves practices up to institutions, and we have seen time and time again that they will prioritize the well-being of their staff in an attempt to protect their image, even if those staff members are perpetrators of violence. Best practices and minimum standards must be set not only for disciplinary measures, but for consultations on policy change and creation of investigation practices. We cannot trust these institutions to protect us. Robert Rice, a professor at the University of Toronto, was recently found guilty of racism and sexual assault by U of T. Rather than being terminated, he is still running a lab and scheduled to teach 2 undergraduate courses next semester. In less than 2 days, our petition to have him terminated has reached over 1,000 signatures, but this legislation would not ensure he is off campus. It would allow the university to continue to determine their corrective actions and silently cover up abuse. And this is what breeds rape culture and breeds harm. It is this silence. This is a major pressing concern we have. The PSI's inefficiency in keeping predatory professors off campus. Discharge or discipline in Section 2 states that if an employee or an institution commits an act of sexual abuse of a student, an institution may discharge or discipline that employee. Not only does the vague wording result in survivors being unaware of their rights and what potential outcomes could be, but it allows a dangerous precedent in which universities can provide minimal discipline and keep dangerous employees on campus. We believe that in situations where an employee commits an act of sexual violence against a student, termination should be the standard practice and response. Other professional disciplinary boards remove the licenses or abilities for that person to practice. Everything from the College of Physicians and Surgeons to the Ontario College of Nurses to the United Church of Canada revoke licenses for sexual violence. So what is the difference between a doctor who abuses their power with a patient and a professor who abuses their power with a student? Currently, there are no minimum standards for sanctions and disciplines. And when the decision is left up to the university, they will protect their employee. Finally, there are many pervasive issues that are not addressed within this bill. Issues such as sexual violence between students at the institutions are not addressed, and survivors have been dismissed and neglected by our government for years. We need new legislation to protect us. If you are not profoundly saddened, angered, or scared by the state of sexual violence in post-secondary institutions, then you are not listening to us, because sexual violence is a crisis, and it is one that takes lives, disproportionately those of women and racialized people. I implore you to treat this as the crisis it is while you create this legislation that has the potential to save lives and dismantle rape culture. Failure to do anything short of that is to be complicit with violence and negligence.
Thank you.